Hi, this is Atlas, and I'm back with more news for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Just a couple short days after we got our first look at gameplay, we actually just got a new article written by Seth Macy with IGN, which gives us a ton of new info about the world's hub. So in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, we'll actually be taking a departure from the old Sanctuary and Sanctuary 3 hub maps, and this time we'll be in a Dungeons & Dragons style tavern. As a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons, I am so incredibly excited that we'll be spending so much time in a tavern, because this is where some of the funniest moments of a campaign can take place. For example, one of the most stereotypical things about taverns in D&D is that you will see a cloaked figure out in the corner who's always just leaning up against the wall, and when you approach them, they almost always say, "I got a job for a couple of brave adventurers." The mission itself usually ends up being really fun or really ridiculous or really dangerous, and so I can't wait to see if Tiny Tina herself has her own version of this. Putting aside the D&D tropes, we are actually given a couple other pieces of info about the tavern. One big piece of information that we got from the author is that the tavern will change as you play through the game. For example, there are a couple of poems that you can find throughout the maps, and as you find them, the tavern poet will recite them whenever you're around. Another thing that'll change in the tavern based on your gameplay is that sometimes when you defeat large enemies, or maybe more difficult enemies, you might see their heads pop up on placards on the walls of the tavern. The first thing that I thought of was the idea of just a really large mushroom head just on the wall. I think that would be pretty cool. And then something else that we'll be able to change ourselves is a couple banners. Now, we weren't told in any detail what banners we can change and the level of customization, but there will be some customizable tapestries around the tavern that we'll be able to take advantage of. Next, the article mentions that we'll find our quick change stations in the tavern. In Borderlands 3, the only quick change station was on board Sanctuary 3, and in Borderlands 2, the only quick change stations were in Sanctuary and in Liarsburg, and then in Borderlands 1, we could do it from any New You station. We can also come to the tavern for some of our quests, and the article mentions that there are 3 types of quests in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, including plot quests, major quests, and side quests. The plot quests obviously are the major plot lines. The major quests are not related to the plot, but are still pretty important, and then side quests are side quests. Possibly the most interesting piece of news we received about the tavern is that there will be an ancient obelisk in there through which we can unlock some additional challenges that are not related to the plot. The article wraps up with some words from Sam Winkler, the lead writer on Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and he mentions that their team's goal was to give players more ownership over the adventure and to invoke feelings of expression and connection with the story. This is really nice to hear, because one of the bigger complaints with Borderlands 3 was that we weren't really the heroes of the story. And this is important because in both Dungeons & Dragons and in video games, one of the main goals is to make the player the hero. Those are all the big pieces of news from today's article. I honestly didn't expect more news to come out so soon after that gameplay reveal trailer, but I am so happy it did. If you want to read IGN's full article, then I am linking it in the description below, so be sure to check. That's all, so thank you for listening, and please consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing if you're interested in receiving more Tiny Tina's Wonderlands content. Thanks!